Today's quick tips are all about design. Teachers create presentations, visual aids, worksheets, and compose email messages every day. These 10 tips will help ensure that all learners are able to access the content and be successful. Let's start off by looking at fonts and how they are used to design. Our first tip is to use fonts that are sans serif, which means without the decorative line. Ornate fonts like handwriting and calligraphy fonts can be difficult for readers because they distract the eyes and the brain from the overall shape of the letter. Here are some of the most used fonts for inclusive and accessible design. Our next tip is to use only one or two fonts for heading and body text. If you need to bring attention to text, use bold text, not a different font. Tip number 3 has to do with color contrast. Make sure the contrast between the text and the background color is drastic enough to make reading easy on the eyes. Tip number 4 is about the size of the font. 12-point font should be the minimum size of font used on any presentation, worksheet, visual aid, or email message. Anything smaller than 12 points is difficult for any reader. Tip number 5 is making sure that the font is not distracting. There are many options to make fonts fun and cute, but they can be distracting and take away from the learning. Make sure your font is not moving or blinking. Next, let's talk about color schemes. Did you know that around 1 in 12 males and 1 in 200 females suffer from some form of color blindness? That's 5% of all users. Tip number 6 is to pick colors and color schemes that are easy for all readers to see and read. Using green and red as positive and negative indicators can become problematic for those people who suffer from color blindness. There are tons of websites that can help you choose color schemes that are accessible for all. Tip number 7 has to do with the color yellow. Yellow is bright and cheery, but can be very distracting for some people. Yellow backgrounds on any visual presentation can be distressing and distract students from learning. Yellow font against a white background can be very difficult to read. Use the yellow color sparingly when designing for all users. Let's talk about layout. Tip number 8 has to do with eye pattern. Most learners naturally scan any page in an F pattern, across the top first, then down the left-hand side. Make the most of this instinct by designing any presentation, handout, or visual aid so that the central objective is at the top. Then present any information in an orderly fashion. This brings us to tip number 9. Use visual hierarchy to organize information. Make sure the most important information is at the top of the page, and the information that is not as important is located near the bottom of the page. And finally, tip number 10. Keep it clean. Cluttering your page with text, color, and imagery distracts from the learning. If you have a large amount of information, break it up into smaller chunks and make sure to leave white space to give the learner breathing room. Do not try to fit it on one page. To learn more about inclusive and accessible design, please contact your digital learning coach for assistance.